Every year, 5 million Americans visit the emergency room for concussions, yet over half of those who suspect they have one never get it checked. This is a serious issue. Untreated concussions can result in memory problems, headaches, depression, and more. Surprisingly, everyday trips and falls are the leading cause of concussion. So joining us with more, Dr. Chris Davlantes, and a practicing ER physician and senior medical director with Abbott Diagnostics, and Kathleen Cameron, senior director of the National Council on Aging Center for Healthy Aging. So thank you so much for joining us and explaining this important topic. I was surprised. I would have thought sports would have been the top cause of concussions. But Dr. Chris, tell us what are about these common causes. What do we not understand about concussions?
Thanks, Jane. You're right. Everyone assumes that concussions happen to athletes, and sports-related concussions are important, but we're seeing more and more in the media about it. But it's actually a small percentage of the ones we see in our emergency rooms. The more common ones are just simple falls. So it's your 49ers fan tailgating before the game, drinking alcohol and falling and hitting their head, or it's a fan in the living room tripping over a rug on their way to the kitchen during the commercial break. Those are the people that we're seeing that come to our ED, and many of them don't seek help. So half the concussions we think don't even seek attention. So they're under-recognized, under-reported, and under-diagnosed. And it's difficult to diagnose them sometimes. The symptoms can be quite vague. People have headaches, trouble concentrating, insomnia, sometimes even symptoms of depression. And it affects their concentration and memory. So these symptoms may start right away. They may be delayed, so people don't seek help when they need to. And that's what makes it even more challenging.
Yeah. Kathleen, can you help explain why falls are so dangerous, especially for older adults?
Yes, falls are actually the number one cause of injury among Americans over the age of 65. About 1 in 4 people in that age group will have a fall every year, and about 20% of those falls can lead to serious and sometimes life-threatening injuries like concussions. And concussions can then lead to things like stroke, memory changes, cognitive changes, even depression. So really, they have a significant impact on the quality of life. But the good news is that there are many things that we can do to prevent falls. Older adults and their caregivers have the power to really decrease those falls from happening and decrease the chances of a concussion.
How can we do that, prevent those?
Yeah, really, there are simple, actionable steps that older adults and their caregivers can take. One is to talk to their doctor about falls, especially if you've already had a fall, maybe have a fear of falling, or feel unsteady on your feet. Another thing we can do is regular physical activity, exercise that includes strength building, improving balance, and flexibility. Those are really key things that we can do physically. In addition, keep our home safe. Remove those tripping hazards like rugs, cords, clutter. Even pets can be in the way and can cause a fall from happening. Improving lighting in the home is really important as we get older, as well as installing grab bars in the shower and other places in the bathroom, because there are many hard surfaces and slippery surfaces in the bathroom. Getting medications checked every year, because there are many side effects from medications that can cause falls, like dizziness, drowsiness. Even blood thinners can cause a concussion or brain bleed to happen. Getting vision and hearing checked on an annual basis is very important, because making sure our senses are working or corrected can also decrease the risk for falling. Making sure we ask for help from our family members and friends, because they can help, for example, make some of those home changes that I talked about.
Those are all great tips. Many things I hadn't thought of. Those would be good for everybody, actually. So, Dr. Chris, say somebody falls, what are the things they should look for? You mentioned a headache. What if that doesn't onset quickly? What are some things that people should really look out for if they do have a fall and hit their head?
That's a great question, Jane. And as I mentioned, some symptoms come on later on. But there are some red flags that people need to look for. First of all, if they're in that older age group and they are on blood thinners, they need to go to the hospital right away. Sometimes there can be bleeding around the brain, bleeding within the brain. We need to determine if that's present, and usually that's with a CAT scan. But not all people with a head injury need a CAT scan. So we actually have a lot of technologies out now. In addition to a good exam and good neurologic assessment, Abbott actually has a blood test that can tell us whether or not a CAT scan is even needed with a pretty high degree of accuracy. So that's one way to help us in the ER determine whether we even need imaging. But the red flags are some symptoms like loss of consciousness or vomiting, persistent severe headache, confusion, altered mental status, seizures. If you see any of those things, for sure, call 911, get to the hospital, and also make sure that if it's you or a loved one or a friend who's fallen, make sure there are no other associated injuries. Sometimes people have neck injuries that they don't think about when they hit their head. So we have to look at the whole picture. So those are the things to watch for, and get to the hospital and get help. Don't ride it out and wait, because some of these things can be serious, not just a concussion, but actually bleeding in the brain, which can be quite serious.
What is a good resource, I guess, online where somebody could go and find out more about concussions and how to prevent them?
Yeah, a great resource is concussionawarenessnow.org. Has lots of materials, really helpful information about concussions and what you can do to prevent concussions. I also recommend visiting the National Council on Aging.org/falls for information on falls prevention, as well as the Falls Free Checkup, which is a simple 13-question survey that anyone can take to learn about their personal risk for falls.
Okay, great advice. Thank you so much for sharing this today, Dr. Chris and Kathleen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.